Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Spooky Sundays. I have a question for you. Have you ever been to a psychic and they gave you a reading that was so bizarre that you never thought it would ever come true in a million years? Well, that's what we're sharing today. People who actually went to psychics and got readings and never thought that those readings were actually true. They just did it for shits and giggles.
Tell me about a time you got a reading from a psychic and their prediction actually came true. I'll go first. I found a journal entry that I left in June 2014 where I went and saw a psychic in Aspen, Colorado, and she gave me some predictions, and then there's also some life advice. So let's go through it. I'll tell you what happened and what absolutely did not happen. So she told me that I would get into a more creative career. And that was true. I was studying law at the time, and I now work in writing full-time in marketing. She said that me and the person that I was dating at the time were not meant to be together and that we would in fact break up. And that did in fact happen. I did in fact part ways with that person shortly after this. And I remember being really upset that she said that. There's a cat. But she was totally right. She said that this was advice. She said I have to get more in touch with my spirituality and that I have to learn to love myself. I remember she kept telling me that I was super intuitive and I would just like roll my eyes. This is crazy. So she said that she saw me moving to Denver, Boulder, or California. So at that time I'd lived in Minnesota, Iowa, and I was just staying in Colorado for the summer. I did graduate college and moved to Denver, and I had been looking at Boulder very strongly. I was also looking at transferring to the Boulder University at that time, but she didn't know that. And then she said she just saw me moving to the Pacific Northwest, which I've lived in Oregon and Washington now, so absolutely true. And then finally she said that she saw me marrying a man that I hadn't met yet with 2 kids, and I am very much so not married and not planning on having kids. So, not sure. Oh, and finally it says, she said that I end up in researching organic or marine biology, which I did not do, so. I do love animals though. Has anyone else ever had a psychic experience where it actually came true? I'd love to know.
Spoil me, spoil me, spoil me. Everything wants to spoil me. It comes times 11, so lucky like 7, receiving my blessings enjoyably. I'm open to it and I'm ready. My mind and my energy steady. Receiving the flood of the blessings that come in like water, the flow is so heavy. Spoil me, spoil me, spoil me. Everything wants to spoil me. It comes times 11, so lucky like 7, receiving my blessings enjoyably. I'm open to it and I'm ready. My mind and my energy steady. Receiving the flood of the blessings that come in like water, the flow is so heavy. Spoil me, spoil me, spoil me. Everything wants to spoil me. It comes times 11, so lucky like 7.
Actually came true.
It was me. I was the psychic, and I did the reading for myself. So, once upon a time, I was in a very emotionally volatile state, dating a very emotionally volatile man who had offered to marry me. I don't want to say that we were engaged and that he proposed, because it wasn't really like that. He had offered to marry me after a couple of months of being together. We moved to a different state together. It was a whole shebang. During that time, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, decided that I wanted to take a mental health sabbatical, and that I was going to leave our shared apartment for a period of time to get my ish together. So I left, and I was living with my best friend at the time in another state away, just trying to like feel like a person again, right? While this is happening, he went to his home state to visit his family. And while he was there, I didn't hear from him for about 24 hours. Very bizarre, very different than what I'm used to with him. So I did a reading with my trusty dusty Wild Unknown Tarot. And a couple cards came out talking about deceit and betrayal and tomfoolery. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, things are unwell. We're definitely not having a good time. And then the Lovers in Reverse came out. Now, if you don't know anything about tarot, usually I read the Lovers in Reverse as a like disharmony, a discord card. Like things are just unwell and the situation is just not somewhere that you need to be. But in this reading in particular, it stood out as cheating, that he was cheating. And I was like, nah, nay, 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 nay. So I kind of packed that away. I kept it in the back of my mind and was like, no, that's not what's happening. Lo and behold, a couple weeks later, a couple months later, who knows? It's all a blur. I went to spend some time with him, a long weekend with him at our shared apartment, where he got absolutely obliterated drunk one night and I had to take care of him. Went to plug his phone in. You see where it's going. Went through said phone and found everything. And he was indeed cheating, and it did start that weekend while he was in his home state. So since then, I have tried very hard to trust the cards, because it's not about what I want and what I want to hear. It's about what the universe wants to tell me. And needless to say, I did not marry that person. And about 6 months later, I met my now spouse, and we are having a great time with no issues and no deceit. But yeah, wild times.
True.
Okay, so number one, it's not my story, it's my mother's. And number two, it's not what the psychic said, it's really actually what happened. So a little backstory. My sister's father unalived himself, and my mother went to a psychic, which is really weird for my mom because she was so against it. But, you know, she was looking for anything to tell her anything about why. So my mom goes to the psychic, and my mom asks her, you know, can I record this? Psychic says, sure. So my mom places a recorder on the table. Now, mind you, this is 1999, so obviously it's not digital. So she places it on the table, presses record, and they do the session. I don't remember what my mother said that the psychic told her, but what I do remember is the fact that there was nothing on that tape. It was completely white noise. Because when she came back, she played it for me. There's nothing there. Not even a word. Honestly, I don't even know if my sister knows this.
And their prediction actually came true.
Okay, so I'm going to preface this by saying that this psychiatrist did also get quite a few things incorrect. So I'm on Facebook one day, and I'm looking at those like buy and sell groups, and I see this just random lady is offering herself for like psychic readings. And I'm like, I'm also bipolar and I'm hypomanic at the time, so I'm like, okay. And I drove 30 minutes to see this chick. So when I first meet with this chick, she's saying a lot of things that were not accurate. She was trying to describe what my grandfather looked like, and she wasn't even close. Towards the end of our session, she tells me that in 6 months, I'm going to be in Hawaii for a wedding, and that my nephews are going to be there, and my whole immediate family, including my nephews. And I'm just thinking, like, that is so unrealistic. We can't afford to go to Hawaii, and nobody's getting married. And especially even if someone got engaged tomorrow, they probably wouldn't be having a wedding within a few months of the engagement. Well, I was wrong. A few months later, my mother announces to my family that she's getting married. She's engaged to get married. And she's getting married in Hawaii, and her fiance is going to help us all be able to afford to go out to Hawaii for their wedding. Sure as shit, my whole immediate family was there. And also she like described what my nephews looked like, and she got it. She described what my nephews looked like accurately. Also, by the time I was in Hawaii, it had been 6 months since that reading.
Tell me about a time you got a reading from a psychic and their prediction actually came true.
So I got a reading from my friend who was a psychic, and she basically just told me that the guy I was dating at the time when I was 19 was not for me, and I was going to meet someone different who was going to make everything make sense. And she said things were going to change abruptly, but then in 10 years' time, I would understand completely what had happened and why everything had to happen the way it did, and that everything would come full circle. And it did. I was shortly went manic and was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and then I met my husband. Had mental illness issues, and 10 years later, I have a master's in psychology, and I made mental health my life work. So
like you go into the store or running errands and you see like a palmistry or palm reading for $5, right? So you're like, oh, I'm just gonna try it just for shits and giggles, just to see if they get this right. When I was younger, I used to have the craziest thoughts. Like, if a psychic can tell you what's about to happen so many years from now, why can't they tell you what kind of underwear, what color underwear you're wearing? Those are the things I used to think about, and I used to swear that makes so much sense. Like, why can't you tell me what color underwear I'm wearing? If you can tell me who I'm going to marry in 20 years from now, right? Crazy. But I go to site. I do get readings, palm readings, or psychic readings, or sometimes, but I think it's entertaining. So let me know if you've ever been, or if you were ever curious to just get your palm read, or to just get like a future reading just for the heck of it. Like, hey, what's coming for the month ahead? Something silly like that. Have you ever thought about it? And if you have, let me know in the comment section. I'd love to hear about your experience, if you ever had any experience, or if you ever thought about going to get a reading. Let me know, and maybe you should check it out, because last time I got one, I believed that it was going to come true, and it actually did come true. So I was like, oh, that's creepy, but it's all about listening to your intuitions and really believing that you know yourself best. It's like getting like a subtle yes to a burning question that you have from your angels, your guides, whatever you believe in, God, and you go with what you hear in your head, and maybe that's how they're tapping in. Maybe they're just telling you the first answer that pops in their head when they ask you a question, because I think that's really what it is. And not a lot of people are honest. Not a lot of people are really telling you the truth. But when you find a good psychic, they're good. And you can tell that they're good because their work shows for itself, right? Anyways, I'll see you in the next video. Let me know some of your stories in the comment below if you've ever been to one, or if you're curious about going to one. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.